veins. Mackie and Judd on SKOR North and SKORNorth.com.
Or try this one on for size. Bonus scoop time. Zolgad and, of course, the star of the show, our guy, Doogie from...
Oh, me.
Yep,
Okay.
You're the star
Right.
from Eyewitness News and the Scoop podcast that you can hear SKOR North and, of course, executive producer, Declan Goff. Doogie, let's start with it. Let's start with the juiciest Timberwolves rumors that you have to unpack from your notebook. Ben Simmons, where do things stand? Because it sounds like, according to your spies and sources, things are progressing as far as his potential departure from the Philadelphia 76ers.
Yeah, I mean, Judd, the Wolves have engaged Philadelphia in talks. I can't necessarily double down on a friend of the program, Dane Moore's report from a few days ago that specifically Gersson Rosas met in Chicago at the Combine a couple weeks ago with Sixers general manager Elton Brand. But I have no reason to doubt that report. I can tell you, though, from my own sourcing, that Gersson, in phone conversations, maybe it was a text, but it wasn't in person. So it was either phone or via text, communicated with the Sixers front office, probably Daryl Morey, but it could have been Elton. It could have been the number 3 or number 4 guy. But I can tell you, Gersson himself has been in contact with the Philadelphia front office, made it very clear, Judd, Anthony Edwards is off the table. Karl Anthony Towns is off the table. Those were the only 2 guys, I'm told, that were relayed to Philadelphia that are off the table. That being said, my strong sense is the idea is to combine Ben Simmons with DAngelo Russell, that the two have a nice relationship. They played in high school together, that Gersson wants to combine those two, not move Russell to eventually end up with Simmons.
But you're saying that there's a chance that if the Sixers absolutely say D'Lo has to go back to them in a Ben Simmons trade, that Gersson wouldn't shut the door on that possibility, where if they say Cat or Ant, then the discussions are going to break down almost instantly.
Yes, I mean, in real time. Now, could that change? Let's say Philadelphia says, okay. And by the way, I don't sense this is true at all. Like, I'll tell you right now, Judd, I don't sense at all. I have a very strong sense on this, that Philadelphia doesn't want DAngelo Russell. So, you know, it's a two-way street in some ways, right? That Minnesota wants to retain DAngelo, pair him with Simmons, even though, again, I'm told that Gersson was pretty clear to Philadelphia. There's only 2 guys untouchable, off limits, and DAngelo was not one of those 2. But I'm just telling you, I have a really strong sense that Philadelphia doesn't want DAngelo Russell. But could that be fluid? Hypothetically, in a week or 2, if Philadelphia says, okay, Minnesota, make your final offer, or how about this? We have a really good offer from New Orleans. We have a really good offer from Portland. We are willing to send Ben to Minnesota. We definitely want him in the Western Conference. We don't want him in the Eastern Conference. So it's you, it's Portland, or it's New Orleans. But we need DAngelo Russell. Is it possible? Again, very much a hypothetical, but is it possible that Gersson in the end would say, okay, I bend. Yeah, take him, I suppose. But I'm just telling you right now, it doesn't seem like Philadelphia wants Russell. And even though Gersson didn't say, hey, he's untouchable, the idea is to have Ben with DAngelo.
Why do you think that they wouldn't want him? Like, what would be their desire?
I think it's the contract. I think it's some of the history. You know, you talk to some people specifically in Los Angeles. Now, maybe that's unfair to DAngelo, that he was very, very young back then, that he matured once he got to Brooklyn. He had the one really good year in Brooklyn, led them to the playoffs. Although his surrounding cast, I think, is underrated as you look back at that team. And it's not like they were, you know, significantly over 500. The Eastern Conference was really weak that particular year, but they dug themselves a hole. DAngelo helped lead them out of that hole. He deserves credit for that one season. But the overall idea of DAngelo impacting winning basketball, I think that's where Philadelphia would have a deep pause.
Interesting. So if Ben is at the top of our list of talkers when it comes to Wolves trade possibilities as we finally near the end of the finals, who else do you think can be factored in and discussed as possibilities, I should say plural, to land with the Timberwolves?
Well, I mean, let's think about the free agency period last November, the trade deadline a few months ago. I mean, the guys that Rosas, the Wolves front office, had interest in then, it still applies now. Miles Turner of Indiana, John Collins of Atlanta, Derek Jones Jr. of Portland, Jay Crowder of Phoenix. I don't think the Suns are moving Jay Crowder, but those are among the names that Rosas chased going back multiple months. Nothing has changed on that front. When you think about the Wolves' most pressing need, overall, it's defense, more specifically, more so interior defense. Although if you land Ben Simmons, the way he can defend on the ball, that can impact, right? I mean, it's got a direct impact on, guys not even being able to get to the rim because
Right.
Ben can deny them, at the perimeter, top of the key, and what have you. But the needs then are the same needs now. So it's all those names. I know that on a national level, Shams of The Athletic, touted today, Tuesday the 13th, that the Sixers have opened up trade talks. Judd, I'm told Philadelphia started to make calls over a week ago, right? And I know the Wolves have engaged Philadelphia going back at least a week, if not more than that, going back to late June when I said, hey, somebody very much in the know told me, quote, badly. The Wolves want Ben Simmons badly. So if you want the player badly, of course you're engaging his team in talks. But I saw that Shams also has a note about John Collins today. What will Atlanta do with the restricted free agent? I mean, I would think after the run Atlanta went on, I think you need to pay John, and I get it. He wants the max. And we can have a healthy debate whether John Collins is worth the max. And if you're the Wolves, would you pay him the max? That's another conversation. But I would think, in some form or fashion, Atlanta is not just outright losing John Collins. Maybe there's a sign and trade possibility there. Would Atlanta have some interest? They need a point guard, specifically a backup point guard. Would Ricky Rubio interest Atlanta? You would need to send them more. Oh, by the way, Ricky Rubio and John Collins share an agency, so that agency can help facilitate a trade of that magnitude. That happens all the time, but I know that Atlanta needs a backup point guard. So you could make a case, and I mean, if you're Atlanta, running this thing back through next year, maybe a tweak or two if you end up moving Collins, but Atlanta feels like, hey, with Hunter back healthy, with Cam Reddish coming into his own, if you're Atlanta, you have to feel like you're one of the 2 or 3 best teams in the Eastern Conference. So if you have this glaring need, you want a guy that can impact you immediately. I can make a case that as a backup point guard in Atlanta, Ricky Rubio would help the Hawks significantly. So again, you would have to add more. It's not Ricky Rubio straight up for John Collins, but that's just one idea that instantly hits me knowing what Atlanta needs.
Okay, Dukes, recklessly speculate for me as we sit here on Tuesday, July 13th, scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being probably won't happen, 10 being it's going to happen. Where would you place right now the odds of the Wolves making a big impact move in the coming weeks at?
Well, how do you define big?
Well, Ben Simmons, John Collins, a name like
a move is coming.
A substantial move that probably impacts players not named Ant and Cat.
I think a move is coming. Now, let me remind everybody that 98% of trades that are talked about never happen. It's literally the jobs of those in the front office to engage other teams in trade talks. That's a big part of what they do, roster construction. So you're constantly tossing about names. Hey, would you do this? Hey, do you have interest in my guy? Would you trade us that guy? Those talks happen all the time. And oftentimes those trades actually don't happen. So it's talks, and ultimately the trade doesn't actually happen. It's talk, but not action. But based on the amount of conversations that Gersson is having, Judd, it would be hard for me to see him not doing something. I guess in the end, we can debate if it's a big, impactful move. A lot of league people just don't see Ben Simmons landing here. That it's great fodder. We can talk about it. Let's continue to talk about it because we know the Wolves would love to have him. but that in the end, it's going to be another team that can make Philadelphia the best offer.
Dukes, we're going to take a quick break here because we have huge news breaking. We will come back with that in 1 second, but let's take this time out. What you got from the Wolves?
Yeah, Judd, Anthony Edwards will be in town this week to get the ankle looked at by team doctors. They then can make a determination on how long he'll be sidelined. There's no sense he's going to miss significant time, but it's unfortunate. As you saw a few guys from the USA Select team get elevated up. They've played in some of these exhibitions. Oh, by the way, the USA losing these exhibitions to Nigeria and to Australia. I think if Anthony Edwards had maintained his health, he would have been one of the players elevated. So, I mean, that's the really unfortunate thing, but there's no sense it's a long-term type injury. Naz Reid, minor calf issue, nothing to worry about, but same deal. He would have had a chance to get elevated too. The Juancho Hernan-Gomez shoulder injury, that's significant. That is a multi-month recovery. That is super unfortunate. He will miss the Tokyo Games for Spain. So of the 3 Olympians injured, by far, not even close, the most significant, Hernan-Gomez, then Edwards, then Reid. I talked with Matt Mitchell on Monday, the Mountain West Player of the Year from San Diego State. He was among many draft prospects that was here in town for that group workout Thursday, Friday, Saturday. His day was actually Friday. So he told me, give me some background on how it went. So they actually never played 5-on-5. It was 3-on-3, 1-on-1. They did a bunch of combine testing. There were no interviews, but he said it was pretty interesting how they handled things. He said it was very well run, so he's glad that he went through that. So I would say that's what I have on the Wolves. The Wild news developing here on Tuesday morning, Judd. I'll tell you, Zach Parise got his wish on the buyout. Ryan Suter, that one to me is fascinating, that Ryan seemingly can still play. You're more a hockey guy than I am, but can still play, can still help a team win. He's incredibly close with owner Craig Leopold. I can even tell you, as of late last week, there wasn't a sense that the Wilds were going to go down this path. For sure, this path on Suter. Parise got what he wanted. Parise always wanted this. Parise is a happy man. Suter, I'll be curious to hear about, because I'm telling you, him and the owner are in lockstep. Like Craig Leopold a couple of years ago drove Ryan for his surgery 4 hours away. Like they were in the car for 4 hours together. They are so tight, Judd. And so for Bill to get approval from Craig to do this is super, super fascinating to me.
Yeah, and this to me, as the reports from Russo of The Athletic start to circulate, that both Ryan Suter and Zach Parise are being bought out, not only makes the protected list for the expansion draft, which is going to be a week from Wednesday, easier to do because, of course, with no move clauses, both Parise and Suter had to be protected, and now they're going to be gone off the roster. So that becomes easier, but this really, really makes a statement about who's in charge of this team now, and that's Bill Guerin. Because I think you're right. Craig Leopold never would have introduced the idea, I don't think, of buying out Suter, and so it's interesting. What can you tell us about the dynamics, do you think, as well, of those two behind the scenes in terms of the things that had changed with the coaching changes, Doogie, the GM changes, which went from Chuck Fletcher to Paul Fenton to Guerin now. A lot obviously had changed since July 4th, 2012, when both those guys were signed to 13-year, $98 million contracts.
I don't think Zach and Ryan ever had any sort of good relationship with Bill Guerin. I mean, I think there was a lot of bitterness. Those two with Bill. Bill is getting exactly what he wants. He wanted those two the heck out of the locker room. And even this last year, I think at times it was presented to us like, you know, they were united, heck, you know, holding hands, singing Kumbaya. Even the run they went on, it was a fun season this past season.
Yep.
Let's just say there was some divide in the locker room. And now Bill, I don't know if he'll ever admit this on the record, but I feel confident saying this. Bill feels like moving these two on will clear up those dynamics that have existed for years, pre him and when he got here, that have existed in that locker room.
Outstanding stuff, Doogie. Thank you. And we will talk to you on Thursday for more scoops on Mackey and Judd.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I know that with the breaking news, you and Declan have a bunch of wild stuff to do. I have a bunch of leftover Major League Baseball draft notes, some Twin stuff. We can get to that on Thursday.
Awesome. Sounds good. Thanks,
okay,
dude.
Sounds good.